Shogun, Episode 7, A Stick of Time. Let's talk about it. So we open up, and this is a cold open, and this is apparently 46 years in the past where Toranaga wins his first battle. And in real Japanese history, I believe this is based off Tokugawa, which of course is Toranaga's character, being his first battle at the age of 15 in the siege of Terabe Castle, I believe, where he defeated Suzuki Shigeteru as far as real Japanese history. Then, of course, we get the beautiful intro, and then we open up with Toranaga meeting with his half-brother, Saeki. Now, of course, it looks like they're on bad terms, hadn't spoken in a long time. All seems to be forgiven. Saeki kind of accepts him and agrees to help him out, and they go back to Izu to essentially party the night away. And then we get other scenes where Toranaga is talking. Again, this episode, it was a little slow for me. I'll say that a couple more times and explain in more detail as we get through the episode. But just a lot of conversations, and I understand that's part of the game as far as, Toranaga's planning and scheming and all that. But he's talking to Blackthorn here and still not decided on his role. Blackthorn is very confused about this, and he says so. And he has every right to be. He's given all these gifts. He's made Hatamoto, all these kind of things. But yet he won't let him really serve him. And I know he does have a plan to some degree. It just feels really slow at this point to get the revelation of what Toranaga is actually going to do and what his plans for Blackthorn are. So Blackthorn really took a backseat in this episode, which I'm fine with as far as the story goes. I mean, we need to see more of Toranaga, how he thinks and all that good stuff as well. But this episode did feel a little bit slow because it didn't really feel like we moved forward in the story. It felt like we kind of went backwards to where we were in the first couple episodes where he was trapped in Osaka. And then we have the kind of the star of the show for her limited time in this particular episode. We have Jean, who is the lady of the tea house, that Blackthorn's mind was on someone else, obviously referring to Blackthorn and Mariko. He was not into Kiku, and I believe we'll find out that they didn't do anything. I believe that'll be revealed later. But I figured that information can be used by Omi, so I don't know if it will be, but it didn't seem to be this particular episode. And then we get Saeki and everyone partying all night long, and he starts telling stories of Toranaga when he was young. I really did enjoy this particular scene here until we got to, obviously, the betrayal. But we get to learn more about Toranaga as a youth, all that good stuff as well. And of course, he's exaggerating a little bit as we find out later. But it turns out that he wants Izu, or he just kind of mentions that almost jokingly. And of course, this is the territory where they're at right now, and this actually belongs to Yabashige. This is his fief. But of course, as it turns out, Saeki has already made a deal, and he came and was so accepting of Toranaga again because he's already been made an offer to be the Lord of Izu, and of course the fifth member of the council. So now we're kind of back to where we were in the previous episodes, in the first couple episodes, when Toranaga and his men were trapped in Osaka because his army blocks all the roads. And he also hands Nagakado, of course Toranaga's son, a sentence to seppuku, essentially death, for killing Jozen in a previous episode with the cannons. So now, like I said before, this is what I mean. We're kind of going backwards here. Now I know Toranaga's got a plan. He's a tactician and a schemer. And then Blackthorn actually makes reference to this later in the episode. But it really did feel like a kind of a step back here for Toranaga. And again, I know there's a plan. I know he probably let this happen. He knew that, he would come in there and potentially put himself at risk, as we'll talk about in just a few minutes. But I feel like it's just a little slow at this point. We're already at episode 7 here, only 3 left to go. And we're not getting any big revelations about the actual plan like we thought we did last week as far as them storming Osaka with the Crimson Sky. And I will say really quickly, as far as being a hostage in his own territory again, this is why that I believe Saeki told the hostage story right before he revealed that he was an actual hostage. And then we get a quick little scene, kind of a recurring theme throughout the episode as well. Blackthorn wanting to help. He wants to do something. Let me take my ship. Let me go blow up some shit for you and not just sit around. And this is what he tells him also later. But he's basically telling Mariko that, he's just not good with sitting there waiting to die. I believe most of the men feel that way. But again, he is still the outsider in some way. And then we get a little quick scene where Saeki is actually speaking to Yabashige as he tried to play both sides. But he brings back his general's head that he sent back to Osaka to try to mend things with Ishido. And of course, we figured this was going to happen, so now he's kind of stuck with Toranaga as he was trying to put himself in the best position. And then we have the scene with Jean, again, the lady of the tea house, speaking to Toranaga using her little stick of time. And that was definitely the theme of this episode, is how much time do we have left? Use it to the best of your ability. And he basically asked to put Willow World under his protection. And he's basically saying we don't have much time left. And she begs to differ and kind of gives us some insight. And I don't know, I was trying to read Toranaga's face a little bit here, if he actually agreed or, knew that she knew or realized that she did know he had a plan and was kind of just going along with it, or if that gave him a plan was really kind of hard to tell. But she essentially says that he let all this happen. He's too smart to let this army just march up in there and surround them. And I tend to agree. I think this is part of a bigger plan here as far as what he's going to do and how he's going to outmaneuver himself this time. But again, this episode didn't let you know that. I figured at the end of the episode we would find out that yes, in fact, he did let him march up in there and think he was in charge. And again, that may have been the plan at the end of the episode. We'll talk about in just a minute that just failed. But I don't think Toranaga would depend on someone else, including his own son. And we have another quick scene right after this as well, another bath scene where Omi and Nagakado are talking, and they're talking about death and how things used to be and all this kind of stuff. And Saiki walks up as well during this scene, speaking about death and talking about how it's basically just boring. It's like a lonely walk in the woods. That may kind of plant the seed in Nagakado's head about the end of the episode where he tries to kill Saiki, of course. Just like he did with Josen, he took things into his own hands, so it was a little unclear whether that was his idea or his father's, but again, I think that was him alone, because I don't think with Toranaga and his character that he would rely on his son especially to go kill him for him. And then Yabashige, being frustrated, actually goes to talk to Blackthorn and even asks himself during the episode, this is a pretty funny scene here, why he's talking to him, but he actually tries to teach him a little bit about the katana, Kinjutsu, or using his katana, and basically just kind of embarrasses him and knocks him down a couple times, disarms him, and then Buntaro's standing there watching, and he comes up and holds his blade to his neck, but he still is obviously very jealous because of the Mariko situation, and he sees right through it. Then we get a quick scene of Fuji training, which we mentioned last week. I thought she would probably be trained in this as well. So eventually we will hopefully get to see some action, some fighting, where we see Fuji, Mariko, etc. using all this training along with all the other samurai. But in this scene, it was a pretty cool little scene where Nagakado actually apologizes to her about, he should have been the one to step up and maybe her husband and child would still be alive. And then we get the scene where there's more talking here, and Buntaro goes and speaks to Toranaga again with Mariko there. He actually requests that she stays, and he asks to formally kill Blackthorn, and basically says he only serves for his own interest, and he doesn't like the way that he looks at his wife. And Toranaga also keeps Mariko there and watches her reaction as he says this, because he knows something's going on. And Mariko then asks for death once again, let me kill myself essentially, let me get out of this life. I'm just here trying to serve you, but I'm miserable every single day because she's being torn in so many different directions. Obviously, she has feelings for Blackthorn, but she can't stand her husband. She's ice cold, and that's what he's still mad about, that she won't even give him any kind of reaction. But this scene also bothered me as well, where Toranaga kind of gets on her a little bit and kind of falls back to calling Blackthorn a barbarian just like Buntaro did. Now again, Blackthorn had just left previously, basically saying, look, you've given me all these gifts, I've saved your life a couple times, that's fine. You've made me this high-ranking samurai vassal, basically chief of the council, but you're not letting me do anything. And then he kind of reverts back to, why are you so worried about this barbarian? And this is Toranaga, where he says the third or fourth episode, whatever it was, when he made him Hatamoto, we can't call him barbarian anymore. He seems to respect him. He saved his life a couple times, but he seemed to kind of backpedal there a little bit. I don't know if that's part of his plan, but he seemed to be genuinely pissed off there about that situation. And I understand he has a lot going on. He doesn't need to be bothered with all this petty stuff. But at the same time, it does validate Blackthorn's point about, why am I really here? Then we see Toranaga in another meeting here with his council. This is where he's going to make his decision. All his council arrives, they're all armored up. I expected maybe a fight here. Saiko comes up as well, and they meet formally, and he does say that he agrees to go to the council and go back to Osaka and all this stuff. And all his men are sitting around like, what the hell are you doing? And Blackthorn's the only one with the balls to say it. He gets up, calls a couple people's names, including Yabashige, and essentially shows his disgust, tells them they're all going to die, and essentially walks off. So I thought here that this may be where, he just takes his head right there in one single stroke instead of 9, since that was a kind of a story that his brother had told, stories that was a little bit embellished. So I thought that would be a good scene to kind of tie that in, where he actually takes his brother's head with one stroke and essentially takes over his army, although that's not guaranteed either. Then we get the final scene here where Saeki is actually with Kiku, and I believe this does confirm, essentially that Kiku is some kind of spy to some degree. She had definitely made a deal, at least with Nagakado, again, Toranaga's son. She leaves to go get something to help them with their pleasure, As you can see, she was choking him during that sex scene, but she leaves so Nagakado could come in there and actually kill him. So he actually chases him down where he's weak and vulnerable. He has no weapons. His men kill a few of his other men, whatever. We're not sure what happened to those. They all kind of just disappeared. But then as he goes to cut him down, he slips and falls and dies by a fucking rock and bleeds out there in the water, and then the episode ends. So again, I don't think that Toranaga sent him. I thought this could be the move here where essentially he bought him a week with Kiku, and that made him vulnerable, and they could take him out right there in secret and essentially take over his army. But again, as I said earlier, I don't think Toranaga would leave this up to his son, so I think he was, again, acting on his own, and I can't say this time that I blame him. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Was this episode a little bit slow for you? Do you feel like it was more of a filler episode? We could have got some more answers. And again, this is not to say this was a bad episode. It just felt like a little bit slow. It felt like, we're not getting answers quite quick enough and the story is not moving along. And I do know Toranaga has some kind of plan, and this was likely part of his plan, but I wanted to get some kind of revelation. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, thank you for all the support, especially to you guys on Patreon, as well as YouTube channel members. And to everyone, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.